Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. As we all know, I will be doing Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind tonight. Well, today, yeah. Not every day I do an afternoon podcast. I'm just not trying to bump heads with a bunch of people tonight. I have, a few topics I want to discuss. And as you guys know, sometimes when I do Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind, I do from time to time will do set topics. And this is going to be one of them. For those that tuned into the last one, you know I did one on indoctrination. Also been talking about diversity. Many of those things are going to coincide, along with some recent events that have been taking place, will coincide with what I want to talk about today in this broadcast. Hopefully I don't have no more computer issues. But we all know how that works. I trying to get this thing launched. I had my whole operating system crashed, and it's like I'm about to happen again. But I do want to talk about, something I've been, because, know me, I like to observe, watch, take things in. Plus I need a little break from some of the earlier topics this week. From all the research I've been doing, sometimes you got to take a break from things and talk about something else, because some areas, it's so negative with stuff that you investigate and research that, you just have to take a little break from it. So you don't burn yourself out. Even though I'm going to cross over into some of those subjects in this broadcast. The numbing of humanity. I know for those that have followed me for a while, watched some of my broadcasts, and podcasts, and things I talked about, you hear me talk about subjects like this. Maybe not using the words and terminology as numbing, But in effect, that's what is taking place. People are becoming numb to things. It goes back to a couple things I talked about last year. When things are being talked about in repetition, thrown in your face every day, every minute, every hour. Every time you turn the TV on, you see it thrown in your face. That's repetition. It's done for a reason. It's done to numb you to the words that they're saying. We've seen that take place with the word Trans-Pacific Pipeline, that trans treaty. It was all a bunch of stuff. The word trans being used just over and over. Now look what's taking place. We have the transgender movement that people have become a little bit numb to because it was always in their face, the word trans. Just like the word diversity. And the way they've been using the word diversity constantly. Everything's about diversity. I can't break this down any better. The word diversity does not mean equality. It means completely the opposite. But they don't spin it that way. They try to make you think and believe that it means equality when it don't. Any word that has a div in it is to divide something, to break down, to categorize, subcategorize, to enslave. You guys need to break these cycles because as they're using that term, they're numbing you down to it. They're numbing you down to its actual meaning. They're numbing you to the idea that it's equality when it's not. They want you to not pay attention. That's why they keep using it over and over. You hear it, then you ignore it. Oh, it's talking about diversity. Okay. It goes in one ear, out the other type thing. That is a part of the numbing. When societies become numb to things, that's when it becomes very dangerous. It's when they're being most manipulated and controlled. They're not thinking for themselves because they're shutting a part of themselves off. So many people are doing that now. We hear the term fake news. Well, some people's opinion, who do you trust? Who do you believe? Everything's fake news. All these truthers are so divided. Who do you believe? You see the tactics. Then you become numb to it. So now everybody that talks anything about news or anything that's important, you become numb to it. These are dangerous mind-altering aspects that people don't realize. I hate to use the word, but it is the proper word for this: psychological warfare. They're playing with your psyche. They're playing with your mind and mental state. The way the internet is, we are bombarded with so much information. We're bombarded with so many views, opinions, theories, theoretical labels. We're constantly seeing labels thrown out there. And when I say labels, anything you want to categorize yourself as is a label. You should be categorizing yourself as whatever your name is. I am Drew Lima. What makes me Drew Lima? My experiences, my knowledge, things I've lived, done. I am not Republican, Democrat, alt. Those words have no meaning, no power to me, unless I choose to give them power or meaning. Those labels do not define me. When we start allowing labels and words to become defining, we become numb to things. We start shutting things off. When somebody has a different opinion or view on a matter, we tune it out because that's not right. That's why we still have a problem to this day with racism, sexism, and all the other colorful terms, analogies, and labels that we want to create. When in fact, if you live in the United States, you are an American citizen. Period. You're not white, black, anything else in my eyes. You're an American citizen. You're my fellow brothers and sisters. That's being open-minded. That's not being controlled by a label. If I call you a friend, you are a friend. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are, your practices and stuff like that. You are a friend. Because those things aren't why I'm your friend. But yet, so many people allow all those other labels to ruin friendships, ruin relationships. We all have a state of mind. We control our mind states. We control the information we allow to have meaning and power. But in order to do that, you have to understand that. You have to have that knowledge that words have power. How people talk, the vibrations and frequencies they empower those words with, those phrases with. You hear me talk about mesmer effects and the pixels that you are bombarded with. 4K Ultra now. Funny, 4K Ultra similar to MK Ultra, right? Yeah, theoretically. But all these pixels imprint. It goes back, I don't think people don't realize how much you really take in when you walk into a room or when you're scrolling down all this information. Why do people jump on everything that's trending? Because you're programmed to. Trending means important, right? It's supposed to mean important. It's because it's trending. And what you fail to realize is when you do that, people like me, others out there that have important messages and stuff, it gets pushed down under your trending, all the trending stuff to where they don't see it unless they keep scrolling and scrolling. Eventually, you're going to get tired of scrolling, and you might get lucky and come across this. We always blame it on the algorithm, shadow banning. There's more to it. A lot more. Yes, there's a part of that. But at that same token, it is how we share information, how we interpret it. There's so many important issues going on around the world that are very important and needs attention. As soon as you start talking about those things, somehow it becomes like people don't want to hear it. They become numb to it. It's not important. It's not affecting them. With the recent events, everybody's seen the reports, the cyber pedophilia roundup, 2,300, 500 people arrested for child pornography and child pedophilia, exploitation of children. But yet people don't want to hear that. When in very fact, they're coming in from their backyard. A lot of that stuff's happening right in their backyards, and they just become numb to it. Why? Because it's talked about. Pizzagate helped numb people to those things. Pizzagate was happened for a reason. Yes, there's many good things that we could say came from it. Many of the good things was this very issues being addressed. But at the same light, you had the other side of the coin who used it to, in a psychological warfare manner, to numb people to it. That's fake news. That's not happening. And they kept on bringing it up. Then an event happened, which further caused people to become numb to it. Now we're looking at another event that's full of questions and intrigue if you do the research and you actually investigate. Do some research before believing a good cause because it sounds like a good cause. Sometimes there's something else in the mix meant to manipulate and with a completely different agenda than what they're saying. And the worst fact is, my worry, I have several worries on this aspect. My worry is this becoming another Pizzagate to where they'll use that to discredit the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, the corridors, cartels, coyotes, all that stuff, illegal immigration running through. That's my worry with this whole scenario that's taken place in the last couple of weeks. You know, the more you watch and observe, the more you research, you start seeing the patterns, the scary patterns of like, there's just something not right about what's going on. And it's because they're playing on people's hearts. I mean, obviously I've been talking about the education system, how our children have been case after case, sexual abuse, rape, every week. Don't see that on the mainstream news. It's only local. And how much more do you miss because it doesn't get reported or you're not in the right area to catch it? So many people become numb to those things. When you bring it up, they say, oh no, it's another fake news. Now we're becoming numb to truth, news, people that are out there putting the time into research, investigate things, bringing you truthful, factful information. But we cannot discern fact from fiction anymore. So we become numb to any type of truther, YouTuber, news, local news media, everything. When people gather and talk in their communities, they bring things up. Well, where'd you hear that? Oh, no, I can't trust that. You see, we have more than one epidemic going around in this world. You know, many systems that are broken, that need fixed. But in comes labels to divide, subjugate, and start compound and create new categories. And when they create those new categories, they miss the root of the problem, the system of the problem. They create and start compounding onto the problem by creating subcategories, which is just another form meant to divide you. We talk about the rabbit holes, going down rabbit holes. Rabbit hole is another way to get distracted, divided. Because it's easy to add a few little shiny pieces to lead you down certain areas. And here's the catch, guys. Here's the thing. When you start becoming numb to other things, you also, like I said, you start closing off a part of yourself. You stop listening to yourself. And you allow yourself to catch those shiny little objects that are placed there to draw you. By not listening to yourself, you keep going further downward. If you're to take a step back and actually listen to yourself, you'd see it for what it really is, and you would want to go down that path, that corridor, that hole. There's so many things that most people are not catching on to because we get tired of things. Well, that's another excuse. That's another tactic to numb you. I mean, the fact is, we're spiraling out of control. Now, even I read an article. I don't think people understand how much information they take in, how dangerous an information overload can be. Because when you overload yourself, you'll eventually shut yourself down. You'll start numbing yourself. You start not listening to yourself. You fall down those rabbit holes of all those shiny things that have been left for you to follow and mislead you. We stop seeing the patterns and things. And at the same time, we start taking in more negativity. Because what? Well, nobody wants to show the good things. They always want to point out and throw the bad things in your face. And that's sad. But, problem there. Careful when they do. Because when they do, there might be a catch to it. As we're, playing on people's heartstrings to manipulate. We like to place blame on whole groups. Oh, there's bad apples. Period. There's bad people in every group. Doesn't make the whole group bad. And that's the thing, people always forget. They want to blame everybody. They want to blame all the cops every time somebody gets killed. It's all the cops' fault. Well, no. Not. You're programmed to think that way. You have. You've been indoctrinated to think that because a few bad apples represents the whole. So therefore, the whole is corrupt. Not true. But you can't see past the programming, the indoctrination. So you become numb to it. We become numb to violence. And history has shown us it hasn't changed. Clear back to the Colosseum days of Rome. Oh wait, we still have Colosseums to this day. MMA events, boxing, World Cup, hockey, football, basketball. We're numb to the violence. Yes, granted, it might not be people using swords and stuff, but it's still there. We're numb to that aspect. We're numb to its origins. We're numb to what Caesar once said about the Colosseum, what the Senate said about the Colosseum, what its design, purpose, and use was for. To distract the populace, to control the populace. And give them the illusion of perception that they could control certain aspects by giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. The illusion of free will, freedom, illusion that they have a little bit of control. But by then they were so numb to the fact they didn't see it. They didn't see it, the corruption that was taking place. Or they became so numb, they didn't care. They had an outlet, the games. Like so many people today. Dare I say it, we have our very own Colosseums right in front of us. The internet. Anything and everything you want, it's right there at your disposal, right there at your fingertips, at your command of your voice. Why do we allow ourselves to become numb? Why can't we see it for what it is? Why do we allow ourselves to shut ourselves down? Because in the end, when we start shutting ourselves down, we stop listening to ourselves. We start listening, dare I say it, the voice of God speaking to us. Most people don't understand how easy it is to get caught up in all of this. Most people don't even understand half the stuff they're seeing and use every day. What it's designed for, its intended purpose. Covered this in other topics. Everybody loves using emotes, emojis. Everybody loves the like, thumbs down, the bell, all those icons. They're sigils. They're meant to trigger. Meant for you to create and express your emotions. Designed for that very reason. Designed to numb you to what it really is. You know, we talk about censorship, control, shadow banning, but yet there's a manipulation right there in itself. There's an illusion right there when we talk about those things. Because you always hear one group, oh, they're shadow banning all the conservatives, they're removing, they're blocking, suspending conservatives. When it goes beyond that label. It's just not that label that's being blocked, shadow banned, suspended. It's others out there. It's anybody that's talking about things that they don't want you to hear. It's anybody that is a free thinker, that speaks freely, that's willing to talk about and go against the status quo. I can go throughout history and show you where it's happened in history. Hasn't changed, same tactic, we just call it by different names. And we're okay with that. No, you should never be okay with that. You should never be okay with saying diversity means equality. It means we're all equal. And if you believe that, go back and restudy your English. Maybe you need an English class and grammar class and how to use words. Or just pick up a dictionary and thesaurus. It's actually quite simple. Nowhere does diversity equal equality. In fact, it is completely total opposite. But hey, look at our people. That's why I've been talking about the education system, because they're the ones teaching the younger generation. They're the ones teaching our kids. And I don't blame all the teachers, because they're forced to teach curriculum. Many of the teachers love what they do. They love teaching kids. Many of them don't agree with the curriculum, but what can they do? And that is some of the major issues with our education system in schools. We have teachers that should not be teachers. You know, but yet we become numb to that fact. Why? Well, many cases because both parents are forced to work, and the other part of the broken system of that is they're taking almost all control away from the parent. So now we become numb to that. We accept it, when we should never accept things like that. Not everybody does, I know, but what can you do, right? That's the question. What can we do? Who can we believe? Who can we trust? Well, the irony of all this starts, and people don't understand this, it starts back at home. It starts back with you taking a look in the mirror and realizing that you shut yourself down, you become numb to things. It's opening your mind once more and realizing that a lot of things you probably took in, been told, has no truth. You need to start all over. You need to find your original foundation. And start stripping away the illusions, the deceit, the manipulations. And as you start doing that, you'll see a change. You'll be able to see like-minded people that are open. You'll be drawn to them, they'll be drawn to you. You know, that's the thing. We've been taught to not step outside the boxes anymore, not to question. When you stop questioning, that's another form of numbing. Why should I question what they say on the news? Why should I question what this truther channel says? He's been right. Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you a little dirty little trick. the best lie is told with just a little bit of truth, because you see that little bit of truth and you don't question things, that's all you see. And you become numb to what they're saying and you listen. You know, it's sad reality that it seems we can go back out throughout down history, and I can point out all the cult following. When I say cult, I mean people like David Koresh, Jamestown, and many, many more, or more recent. I can't. The what is it, XNIVM, something like that. You know what I'm talking about? That one group of recent. But yet we become numb to it because now we're entering the area of Pizzagate, the pedophilia. So no, that's yeah, whatever. It's fake news. Why? Because I heard these Pizzagate people talking about that group. When in fact, well before Pizzagate ever came along, people were talking about that group. You know, people don't want to talk about the missing children that's in your own backyard. Most people just are so numb they walk right past the bulletin board with all the missing people on it in your local stores, like Walmart, your local grocery stores. They all have them. Most of them have them. Can't say all. Haven't been to every store. But all the ones I've been to, they have them. Even the dollar store has them. At least the ones I've been to. But we walk right by it. That's how numb we've become as a society. That's how indoctrinated and programmed we've become. Let me tell you something. Those missing children on those bulletin boards are the very ones that have come up missing in your area. And yes, there are adults too. It covers all of them. But there's more missing children on those flyers than there is adults. Then we get in the mindset that we want to judge people because, they might have screwed up in the past. Most people can't see past a person's past. Well, you did that. You're convicted felon, ex-convicted felon. But yet the person's become a model day, everyday citizen, working his butt off twice as harder. He's part of society because society rejects him for his past mistakes. Because they're taught to. Very few people believe anymore that people change. Because we're told people don't change. We see people that don't change. And the sad reality of it, most people aren't going to change until they hit that very rock bottom. And they realize they have to change. There's no other way around. And that's when they truly change. Unfortunately, we have another broken system that's meant to trap them in the system because they're cattle, they're money, they're a product. Instead of they are a human being that made a mistake. And yes, let's not forget, there is bad apples. There are people that deserve to be there, never be released. That's a fact. And most of them have accepted that fact, even though they may have changed. They realize, hey, but the problem is, the system is designed to be a revolving door. They've taken anything and everything away. Give them a chance to where it is barely a 1% that make it out and become a productive role model citizen. And that person had to walk on eggshells every day, looking over their shoulder. The system's broke. But we don't want to talk about that. Why? Because we're numb. Because those are criminals. They do not deserve a second chance. They deserve to rot away there. That's most people's mindset, whether they admit it or not. We've gotten so far away from the original teachings and foundings of this country. We've gotten so far away from the concept of community, defending our neighbors. You know, enough setback, especially dealing with what I've been working on the past couple of weeks, dealing with a certain said group over in Tucson, Arizona. You know, trying to figure out. Well, I don't have to figure out. I know why. But the knowing why isn't the problem. It's not knowing how we got to that point. Back in the day, ranchers and stuff, their neighbors, they protected one another. They would never allow a threat to their fellow neighbor. They would come together as a whole community and push back anybody that tried to mess with their land, mess with their livelihood. They protected their fellow brothers and sisters. How have we gotten so far away from that? I mean, there's a reason why some of those ranchers turn and look the other way, because they don't have a choice. They don't have protection of their neighbors, or they got strict laws in place where they can't defend themselves. There's many problems. So the only alternative they have is to take the money and look the other way. If not, bad things happen. Very bad things happen. But yet we ignore those aspects of it, and we just blame the rancher for allowing them to use his land. I don't blame the rancher. I don't blame the federal agent for the kickbacks, because they were left with no choice. Must be feeding time at the zoo. The reason she does that is because they allowed her to do that. She don't do it to me when I feed her. You know, sometimes I honestly think we treat our animals better than we treat other humans. I hate to say that, but this is kind of true. I mean, we have activists out there that are diehard activists to the core when it comes to animals, but when it comes to another human being, not so much. Let's talk about numbing of humanity. When we place an animal above another human being, there's something wrong. Something very wrong. But that, you know, throughout the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it's always in your face. Groups like PETA and all the other animal activist groups. I mean, I love my animals that I have. But a human being comes before them. Sometimes we forget they can fend for themselves in their nature. You know, it's just like it's in our nature. We're supposed to be evolving. We're supposed to be free thinkers, free men and women, but yet we allow systems to enslave us. We allow systems to control us, influence us, manipulate us, instead of questioning everything. And I know one of the hardest things to question is religion. And I don't like using that term, because as we've seen, studied, anybody that's studied religion and I've studied the history of religions. I mean, let me put it this way. I don't got nothing wrong with the religion, but it's the dogma. It's the rhetoric. The things that controls the masses, that manipulates them, tells them you can't love this person, this person is evil, or this church is evil because they don't practice the way it is. Right there, stop right there. That is controlled dogma. That is controlled manipulation. You know, I think the Bible has plenty of good moral things, but I also think that there's other stories. Our Bible is just another piece of a puzzle, greater puzzle. I believe in God, but yet I don't talk about it. Because it's such a touchy subject with everybody. But yet I can point out all the bad things that's happened in every religious group. Everyone. Every single last one of them. You know, everybody's quick to say, oh, we're being persecuted. But when another group gets persecuted, oh no, they're not part of us. Wow, where's the loving thy neighbor, loving thy brother and sister? Where's that? It's a human being. You know? You know, who am I to dictate your path, your spirituality? Who am I to question those things, right? No, I shouldn't have to. My job is to question my spirituality, my beliefs, and why I believe them. It's my path that I walk. It's my spiritual connection with God. That's who I'm answerable to. And he'll let me know when I step out of line or head down the wrong path, or he'll let me head down that path to teach me a lesson. You know, we get in the concept of those doctrinations. In a sense, we should call them for what they really are, indoctrinations. I mean, most people don't study their history. They ignore that part of history. Why? Because they become numb to it. Because they've sat there. Even I did. I grew up in a Baptist church. You know, fire and brimstone. Oh boy, but did I hear some? Hey, they actually had some good preachers. But I got tired of that aspect because what I read and interpreted from the Bible, what I spiritually led to see, I seen that wasn't right. It's not our place to condemn another human being for their beliefs and practices. And I went and tried many other churches, other beliefs, learned so many great things, but seen a repetitious pattern throughout all that journey. You want to be truthful? We're in church right now. Where two or three gathered, we are in communion with God. I believe that. I don't come out right out and say it, but that is true. When we gather, we are in communion if we're open and realize that very fact. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to go down a spiritual rant, but unfortunately, it needs to be said because that is some of the problem. We're quick to blame the other groups, and we don't even question the very one we follow. I'm constantly getting asked, why do you follow such and such? Why not? I mean, let's keep it real. Every now and then, every dog gets a bone. But in fact, it's good to hear opposing views and opinions on things. How we learn, how we question things. Why do we believe this? Well, why did somebody hit my thumbs down button trigger? Which, by the way, guys, it doesn't. I actually I don't know, wrong terminology here, but I take quite pride when somebody hits that thumbs down button. You know why? Because I triggered you. I made you think and question. I did my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Supposed to make you think. I'm supposed to make you question. I go about it a different way than everybody else, of course. But why not? There's many ways to trigger people. But the thing you need to ask yourself, why'd you allow somebody to have power over you? Why'd you give me power over you to trigger you? Good question, right? It's a very good question that maybe you should ask yourself. Why'd you give me power to trigger you? Why'd you give me power to manipulate and control you? To trigger you. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm triggering you. I'm not doing anything else besides making you question something. You may not realize what it was right now. It may be weeks, months, or years. But one day, it'll come back to you. It's like, man, I remember somebody talking about that. It bothered me so bad. Now I get it. Yeah. That's when you start breaking the cycle. That's when you start breaking that numbing, that control and indoctrination that you've been put through. That's when you start becoming more aware and self-aware. Something I strongly believe the great philosophers of the day understood when they could gather and debate and philosophize on many different things. They understood the power of it, how it stirred the mind to question new things. Sometimes I follow people just to see what they got to say, to watch, observe. Sometimes I was drawn to them. Most people don't realize those things. We get caught up in the bustle, and it's more chaotic now than ever. Because now you have more stuff at your feet. You have more information hammering your way. Let me tell you something about information. This broadcast is being transmitted. When we use the word transmit, my voice is being transmitted. That means the frequencies, the energies, the vibrations is being transmitted. There are people in this world that know how to use that. And do it every day. I see it every day. Most people don't realize it. That's why I bring it in from time to time, to make you aware that it is happening. Because if you are actually aware of how powerful your memes are that you guys like posting, you probably wouldn't be creating so many memes. Most people have that knowledge. They don't want to hear that knowledge, because to hear that knowledge, they want to, oh, that's evil. Well, if it's so evil, why are you doing it? Why are you using it? Ask yourself that question, because you're using it without the knowledge, which makes it even more dangerous. You guys don't hear that. I mean, I actually kind of understand how we've gotten to this point, why people are so numb. More so now than they ever have been in any previous time in history. Because we're all plugged in, tuned in, and we don't realize most people don't realize what they are plugged in and tuned into. Now, I'm not against technology, because I think technology in the right hands can be used for all kinds of good. But unfortunately, most of our technology never gets into the right hands. You know, we get caught up in so much crap. It's not even funny. I mean, there's so much stuff I've had to, well, thankfully, well, I don't want to say thankfully, because I'm kind of needing a little break from a little bit of the darker stuff that I've been stumbling into in the research I've been doing. But it needs to be done. It needs to be investigated. It needs to be brought to people in a way where you strip the negativity out of it. To show people these things are happening. These things need attention. You know. And it's also knowing when to take a break from those subjects and talk about other things. You know, see, I've learned a long time ago. That's why I don't schedule my streams, because it's impossible. Because I go off feel. When I feel drawn to do something or say something, talk about a subject, I come right on and talk about it. Or I start researching and investigating it to see why I was drawn to it. Sometimes I might have been drawn to it from my eyes, my ears, something I needed to see and learn. And I don't bring it to you. You know, I get accused of censoring myself a lot. Truth is, I don't. And I do. Yeah, oxymoron, I know. The part that I censor is my frequencies and vibrations. Because I don't ever want to come across or ever think that I might have manipulated somebody. Because then you're no better than the very same people that you're trying to point out. The very same people you're trying to make people aware of. The very same things you're trying to make people aware of. But most people don't even know that they do it because they don't have that knowledge. They haven't been taught about those things. And they do it, and they don't realize what they are doing. Classic example. I know this is going to piss some people off, but the classic example, Alex Jones. He actually falls under my category of a cult following. How people hang on to every word he says. He is absolute truth. Don't question him. Don't say anything bad about him. He's part of the problem of numbing people down the way he does his things. And he has all that knowledge himself. And what he didn't have, somebody taught him. And that person knows who I'm talking about. I mean, clear down to his lighting studio. Sometimes, guys, you know, that's why Yeah, I use some images, but I create the images so I know, therefore they have nothing embedded in them. No energies, no frequencies. They are what they mean. Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind means exactly that. The image fits it. It makes you question, think. I choose my images appropriately, not to deceive. I don't use flashing, try not to use anything flashing, because I know how mesmer effects work. I've studied mesmer. I know how pixels work. I know how a lot of things on the internet work. Why? Because I've taught myself how to code, build websites, build platforms. Created my own site. Got away from the social platforms. Then I found out the ugly truth about that. Much like Gab found out the ugly truth about that. Till you own your own server, you're still bound and controlled by your hosting provider. In a sense, we're all bound and controlled by a provider. Because, if they ever get sick and really sick and tired of us, especially now that net neutrality is dead, they can really screw us and shut us down. Oh, we can't have you talking about that. We're just going to jack the price of your internet so you can't afford it. Or we're just going to terminate it because you violated our terms of services. There's something most people haven't talked about because they're caught up in the flashing and glitter things. They're caught up in what they're told could happen. They don't look at the other possibilities. They can be used as another form of censorship, another form of control. Just like I sat down with lawyers and techs and executives when I was building Wygo Ape. Because I had to. My name was on the contract as co-owner. And I learned some very kind of disturbing things that didn't matter. To truly have a free speech platform, give up the notion. Because at some point, they're going to force your hand. They'll either bankrupt you, tie you up in legal fees, just like the illusion that Google is not a monopoly. Oh, it's very much a monopoly. Google's search engine is used on every form of coding for search. Google can pretty much control your traffic just by burying you in their search or deeming you unsafe for their platform. Another form of control. People become numb to it and they just, okay, I'll give an inch here and do things a little bit different. And those that talk about these things, man, that's conspiracy theory. See how that word was used and used and used and abused? To where people became numb to it, and they're like, you know what the new term for conspiracy theory is now? Fake news. Careful how you throw that word around. Everything I'm talking about right now, fake news. That's right. Everything I've said is fake news. Why? Because it's my opinions and views. Because I'm talking about things that go against the status quo. So therefore, it is fake news. I don't claim to be a truther. Don't claim to be anything. Don't use the labels. I'm part of the YouTube community, and that is the community as a whole, every niche and genre of YouTube. I'm part of YouTube, so therefore, I'm part of that community. Just like I'm a part of the Facebook community, Twitter community, Gap community, Patreon community, and the list goes on and on, because I'm also part of many Ning communities and other communities that I delve in. But I have my own community outside from this black box, black mirror. You know, I do things that I don't share because I don't feel like it should be shared. I might talk about it afterwards, you know, like Memorial Day weekend. I happened to be in town seeing they were having a barbecue for the vets. Stopped in because I know I grew up with a lot of vets, even within my family. I have a lot of respect for vets. And I always tried to help out, give back to them. $5, donate $5, $20. Always, when it comes fish fry time in the fall, always go to the Legion and buy their fish fry. Why not? It's actually good. But it's not. That's not the point. You know, I can cook my own dinner and save me some money, but the money goes back to a good group of people that dedicated their lives for our very freedoms. And I respect that. You know, I respect the fact that we need to get back more to what our founding fathers had originated for this country. And it's also, we need to learn through our history, use our history, and learn from it to where my forefather made a mistake when he deemed that we didn't need to put term limits on our politicians, our congressmen. Because back then, see, we have to realize some things. Back then, how many states were there? 13. So how many congressmen did you have? Look at it compared to today. Things do need changed. When we start changing those things, we'll start bettering those things. But we can't forget the core principles, the core morals that our founding fathers bestowed upon this country. You know, the numbing fact to people. People always say, well, we're hated by everyone. Why are we so hated? It's because of the very freedoms we have. The very same things that so many of us have become numb to. Media, you can't go past this little box. That's not right. They can go anywhere they want. There's no such thing as a free speech zone. But they dumbed you down to that too, didn't they? I said numb, not dumb. True. Safe zones. Safe spaces. Sometimes you gotta pay attention to how they use things. Where they use it, how they use it. Because it's a form of manipulation. It's a form of indoctrination, programming. You know, I'm not sure how long I've been live. I started at 3:15. Yeah, I'm going to shortly wrap this up because I'm trying to keep my videos under an hour and a half or at an hour and a half. I know I'm bad for that. Actually, I can't say that. I've been doing pretty good at an hour and a half video of late. The other night was the first one that actually went over 2 hours in a long time. And I'm content and happy with the hour and a half mark. I'm content when I do go over that too, so it don't matter. It's me. You know, see, that's the other thing I want to touch on before we close. Because, you know, I talk about triggering a little bit in this video. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you a perfect example because I allowed myself to be triggered last week. Because I thought, and that's what, see, there was a positive thing for that trigger because it brought about this very conversation, and this is going to be part one of it because there's so much in depth I can go into, and I want to go into it. Kind of want to take the go all out on this one. Talk about things that I don't normally talk about on this channel because it's really important that you become aware. But couldn't believe, I got 160 people that follow me. I started looking at some of the other people that were reporting on the same thing, talking about the same thing, and we never seen any of our stuff being retweeted or reshared. I can count on one hand how many people reshare my stuff regularly. I can count on two hands how many people out of the 160 that retweet or reshare my stuff. And that bothered me. I couldn't figure out why. Because it was an important issue. We're talking about children. We're talking about trafficking, human trafficking, and a whole load of stuff. Nobody wanted to care. All they cared about what was trending at that moment. Very few people were resharing. And I'm watching this other group. I seen what I needed to see from that, which made me want to research, further investigate, which just all I did was further get my blood boiling. Because the truth is, regardless of what we think or what we're talking about is happening in Tucson, Arizona, the fact remains this stuff is happening. All around the world, even here in this country. It's happening on a daily basis. In fact, as of right now, just saying that, 4 people have been abducted. That's the reality of it. And that's right here in your own backyard. Doesn't get no attention. It gets pushed under the rug. It's time we stop allowing these important issues to get pushed under the rug. It's time to stop allowing people to say, that's fake news. It's time we do not give power to that word anymore. And stop numbing ourselves. Because the very fact is, these things are happening. These things need our attention. And that's what triggered me. That's what made me stop. Start questioning, why did this bother me? Why did it trigger me so bad? It had me so mad where I wanted to lash out. Discretion. I listened to myself. Something was telling me to stop. Question things. Now we're talking about the very same things that came from that questioning. Why? Why have people become numb? And it has so many areas and reasons why that you just can't cover in one podcast or broadcast. That needs to be brought and made to give people attention to make them aware, so they stop letting people control them and manipulate them, so they can break some of those illusions that they've allowed themselves to live in. That's really the important part of other people out there in these communities that talk about other subjects. They're trying to break you free of those things that are shackling you, that are blinding you. As a community, this is my message to the community. Quit attacking each other. Stop. You're just further dividing us. You're further turning people off and away from you. You're allowing them to become numb. We have a responsibility because we have a lot of power and influence that many of you don't even realize that you have. We have a responsibility when it comes to those things. with knowledge and wisdom comes great responsibility. We become responsible the more we learn, the more we experience. We're responsible how we share those things. When we get on our channels and start bashing other channels, what are we showing? And yes, I know some of you will point out, well, there's some people, well, make sure when you do that the person's dead wrong. That person's out there strictly to manipulate people or use people. Because yes, there's bad apples in every group. But also remember what you're doing. Because sometimes, some of those channels, they bring up for interesting talking points later down the road. Things to question, well, how do they believe that? Because, I've talked about this. The greatest debate ever. The creation, the Big Bang, evolution. Well, there's truth on both sides there, guys. Because, both had to happen. But they manipulated it. Climate change, or global, let's use global warming instead. Global warming. Yes, I'll tell you, it does happen. There's truth there. But it's also a natural cycle, natural process. There's the truth. Do we contribute? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, we can look at the early Mayans that they're just now discovering. Not the Mayans you've been taught and known, but the ones before them. Great, huge cities. They've stripped the land. Guess what? Mother Nature took back over you. They're just now finding how big this metropolis was. How it extended almost the whole continent. I mean, roads, a football field wide. Going through, it's huge. It's huge. Technology using radar, peeling back the layers, seeing in all of this. Yes, they brought about, in a sense, their own demise. But the world's still here. We're still here. There's lessons to be learned. There's a natural cycle in place. And we do have impact on this world. But we allow them to manipulate that and use it to take things away from us, control us. Like I said, for everything like global warming and all the other things you can come up with, you'll have a group of scientists that will say one thing and a group of scientists will say the opposite. It's on you to decide who's right or wrong. It's on you to see the game that's being played out. Because there's facts on both sides. Like I said, the best lie is told with a little bit of truth. You'll see the truth and you won't see past it. Then when somebody questions that, you condemn them, you judge them. They're wrong. Wake up. Quit allowing yourself to become numb to important topics. Start learning to become free thinkers. Free people. Quit allowing systems to control you and manipulate you. Yeah, I've done a video on, does the caste system still exist to this day? Yes, it does. We just don't call it a caste system anymore. Same framework and structure is there right before you. And we ignore it. We allow it to take place. We don't question it. Why? Because we don't call it a caste system anymore. Some countries call it a monarchy, dictatorship, communism, socialism, democracy, republic. We have so many different titles for it, but the structure is still the same. and you break it down. But we become numb. We become lost in the changing of terminology, the way words are used. We create our own diversity, but yet we're told diversity is equality, when the key component to diversity is div, to divide, to subdivide, to categorize, label, manipulate, and enslave. Think about that. I will see you guys on the next one. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. And Sunday is Father's Day. And enjoy yourselves. You guys have a good afternoon.